Good morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of Xa Talk Show. Today is 2019, October 25th, USA, Friday, 12 o'clock noon, San Francisco time. Welcome all. Good morning, Bart. Good morning, Freddie. I think Freddie is here, Freddie Freeman. And good morning, Odd Harold. Maihuen. So we are going to talk about keyboards. Let's see. Keyboards. Welcome to the chat and type questions you have or comments. Okay. So good morning, Freddie. And who is it asking? Odd Harold asked a question about Kinesis versus Ultimate Hacking Keyboard. Oh, Kinesis, discuss how comfy the Kinesis is. Okay, so let me show you the Kinesis. I showed this 1,000 times. Let's see if I have this video. Okay, I have it. So I showed 1,000 times. Now remember, I switched to this keyboard. This is the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard. And now look, I changed my name. It's now XXX. This is X-rated keyboard. And this is the Kinesis. And so Odd Harold asked how comfy the Kinesis keyboard is. How comfy? Well, let's see if I can have these, like put it on my shoulder, and maybe I can type how comfy it is. Okay, this is a tricky maneuver. It's like a military maneuver. This doesn't look too good. So it's very good. I love it. Better than the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard. This is not going to work. Okay, and what the fuck is this? Oh, this is the microphone. Okay, how do I do this? On the right shoulder or on the left shoulder? On the right shoulder. Okay, now it's better. Now you can see. Now I have to actually do this way. So how comfy? Okay, hold on. Magnify. How comfy is the Kinesis Advantage 2 keyboard? It is supremacy. Okay. So it's very good. I like it very much. You see, it's got all these curves, as you know. It curves down so that your wrist do not bend up like a typical keyboard. Your wrist is straight, and your fingers dip in to the keys, and you can see the keys, they have different height. You see this D is hold on a second. You see this D. Well, I'm using a Vorax, so you see that's E, that is O. So anyway, you see the D is lower down because your index finger is higher, much higher, and so they are adjusted for your finger length, and so it is fantastic. And you use these thumb keys for space, for frequently used keys, such as enter. You see, this is enter, this is space, and on the left hand you have backspace, and you have forward delete. Okay, forward delete, something like this. Move to the beginning and forward delete. Okay, I need to forward delete. Oh, it does not work here because I'm using Emacs with special key binding, but you can see it here. Stupid Mac, that it prevents you from holding wait, This is prevent you from holding I'm using, you see, I'm used to Emacs, so anyway, holding a key down. So you can move to the top, move here, and you see forward delete. So anyway, the thumb keys are great. So how comfortable? It is extremely comfortable. It's my keyboard of choice. Okay, actually, all this typing went wasted because you didn't see it, because all this typing all this typing went wasted because you did not, because I forgot to switch my video setup. Okay, now back to Emacs. This is fantastic. Okay, so space, enter, backspace, and forward delete. Okay, so and thumb keys are great, and yeah, it's great everything. That's Kinesis Advantage keyboard, and you go buy it now. I have a video review keyboard. Okay, so you go to my Xali keyboard blog and go to Ergonomic keyboard, and you go here and you buy it. I have a video review, more detailed video review, and text review, everything. So actually, so let me open a new buffer, paste it here, make a link, copy it, and go back. So those of you in USA, buy it. Now let's see. Yes, I'm here. Now, am I still talking? Okay, so now let's get this fixed. Okay. So it's fantastic. Now my only complaint is that the thumb keys are a bit far, because I'm an Asian. As you know, I'm an Asian. My hands are not big. My hands are in general smaller than white man's hands, smaller than black man's hands. You know, how smaller? Well, not too small, but I mean like half a centimeter. That matters. That makes a difference. And women's hands are even smaller. So this keyboard, if you look at thumb keys, this is my natural thumb position. So I have to stretch quite a bit to press the enter. So you have to be careful, because once you buy this keyboard or Ergodox keyboard, if you buy this keyboard or Ergodox, anything with the thumb, you have to watch out. You don't want to make this movement too much. You don't want to do that, okay? You don't want like just go there, press enter. Rather, what you want is you move the whole hand over. That's what I do. So I don't like stretch to press these keys. I don't do that. When I want to do that, in fact, actually, when I want to press this key, typically I actually use this finger. You want to move the hand, your whole hand. Don't stretch. Okay, that's important. That's important because when you have any type of repetitive strain injury, or when you feel uncomfort, but again, depends on how much you type. You know, if you are young, you are a programmer, you never actually type that much. You think you do, but compared to others, you don't. So you don't have a problem. So you think, oh, Xa's advice are bullshit. Well, that's because you don't type that much. Actually, a lot of other people do. So, like I mentioned many times before, you have to get a sense of how much you type. Okay, so the thumb keys are a bit too well. So depends on your hand. For me, it's a bit too inward. So that's one keyboard. Good morning, Alan. And so yeah, I recommend it. So I have so many ergonomic keyboards reviews here. You can any one of them is good. Okay, all these are pretty good. Which one to choose really depends on you. Depend on your situation. Depends on your preference, because for example, their price varies greatly. For example, these Microsoft ones, this is pretty good. It's only $60. On the other hand, if you want Kinesis, it's $340 or $320, something 300. Okay, and if you don't really want this extreme, you go with the ultimate hacking keyboard. This is great, and this is what I have here. So I had this for like over a year now, but mostly I'm using this because it's curved. But last week, I switched to this for a while for a change, and now I switched back because I prefer this. Because but if I'm on a go, then this is better because that is kind of big. So it really depends a lot on you, and also they have very different features and qualifications, uh, very different. For example, this ultimate hacking keyboard got the greatest programmability. Let me show you. Carabiner event viewer, carabiner elements. Okay, wait, that's not what we want. Close that. We want to open the UHK agent. UHK stand for ultimate hacking keyboard. UHK ultimate hacking. It's got the greatest programmability of them all, I would say. Even I know some of you are Ergodocs fans. Like every day you are talking about, oh, Ergodocs, we need Ergodocs. Ergodocs, what do you think of Ergodocs? This one. This is the Ergodocs. Okay, the Ergodocs keyboard got the worst problem with the thumb keys. Now remember, I said the Kinesis thumb keys are a bit too. Wait, can you see my screen? Okay, yes. Okay, remember I said the Kinesis, the thumb keys are too much. I have to move my fingers inward to press these keys. The Ergodocs is actually worse. I talked about this before in my video. So in fact, you go down, there is a guy, Ergodocs thumb keys. Okay, bad point. Ergodocs thumb key pen. This guy is a fanatic of Ergodocs keyboard. This guy, he's somewhat well known in the keyboard community, and he loved Ergodocs. He got several Ergodocs. He built them, and he's an evangelist for Ergodocs. But one day he failed the pen, in his thumb. He don't know what's the problem. He thought it's a tenting, so he adjusted the tenting. Then the pen went away, but it came back after 3 days. So he's in trouble. He's in trouble, like me. Several, in the past 15 years, you started to have a pen, and you don't know what's going on. You don't know why. Usually this happens. You don't know why. But until you really try to find out why, and he found out it's because the thumb keys, because he's moving the thumb keys too much. The thumb, not the yeah, he's moving the thumb too much. So he ditched them all. He sold all his Ergodocs, and he went back to he, he he went back to this keyboard. Okay, PC keyboard. He went back to this another very famous, popular, high quality keyboard. This one, he went back to the Leopold FC 660C. Remember, it is this model that's critical because they have two models. The other model looks similar, but it's not the same. This one, FC660M, is similar, but it's actually entirely different. The key switches stuff are different. So he went back to this one, which is rather idiotic, but for each person it's different. So you have to watch out for the thumb keys. Okay, don't. I mean, even on Ergodocs, just try not just move your thumb like that. Move your whole finger. This is actually this is a good advice. Applies to every keyboard. You don't want to do any kind of stretch like pressing the control key with your pinky, like stretch or something like that. Don't do that. Move your whole hand. Okay. So that is about that. Meow cat, what's your language, please? Good morning, Kathy. Okay, let's see what's other comments. So Odd Harold, are you still here? So Odd Harold, is swapping between keyboard necessary? Swapping between keyboards. It's not necessary, but for me, I sometimes I change keyboard because it's not necessary, but for me, partly it's fun because I love keyboards, so I want to switch around, and also partly because if you have RSI, repetitive strain injury, it's good because it changes your muscle memory, for a change. So if you want curved, so this is great. Of course, there's also Motron, but Motron is $500. Okay, Kinesis is 300 something, but Motron is, I think it's better actually, but it's $500. So it's up to you. And then you have these do-it-yourself keyboards. For example, this one, this is fantastic. Okay, now this one, the thumb keys are closer. So if you have smaller hand size, or if you are a woman or Asian, this is better thumb keys. So I tried it. I really love this one. Elegant, but you have to build it yourself. But actually, so I went in a keyboard meetup in San Francisco about 2 years ago, 2018, or was it 2016? So I tried it. It's fantastic. So that's Kinesis Advantage 2. Actually, that's Advantage 1. But anyway, so Dactyl is great, and you can see many people has built it. But today you can actually buy it pre-built for sale for, I think, was it $340. Yeah, you can buy it. You have variety of configurations. You just go to this page. Okay, I have JavaScript off, so you don't see the variations. But anyway, you can buy it. So that's pretty good. And you see, this keyboard has much less keys than Kinesis. Okay, so I'm now going to. You see, Kinesis, you got these function keys on top. You don't have that. So the solution is a solution for that is again to get a programmable keypad. Okay, like the one I have in the middle. You get, for example, I can. Anyways, okay, I'm back. Let's see what comments do we have. Made me mad, made me sad. Oh, that's because webpack. So I spent 3 hours studying webpack JavaScript yesterday, looking at the source code. So, and what do you think of Laverno laptop keyboards before chick-click style? Okay, we can talk about that. So Bart says he is going to build this keyboard. Nyquist. Now this is a very simple design. So this is also do it yourself. You buy the kit and you assemble it yourself. You also have to solder the electronics. You might spend a day doing that. So I think this is pretty good. Pretty simple. And good luck to you, Bart. So next question. The others are too wavy. Okay, yeah. I like it just square. Okay. Yes, I'm here. And yes, so Freddy says, and yes, since you are talking about JavaScript frameworks, I wondered how do you do unit tests in JavaScript? If you do, what framework do you use? Okay. Now, I talked about this many times. I am a JavaScript expert, okay? But however, I do not know the modern frameworks, the modern JavaScript frameworks. Actually, I need to show my stuff. So you go to my JavaScript website. This is JavaScript in depth. This is the most in depth. This is the best JavaScript in depth book in English language on earth. Okay, it is the best. That is my assertion. That is my claim. Now you can at any time, if you know a JavaScript book, type it right now. I can give you my comment why mine is better. Like any book, printed or otherwise, printed or Mozilla or Microsoft or from whatever or JavaScript. The JavaScript you don't know JavaScript. There's that book. Okay, any JavaScript book in English language, type it. I'll make a criticism. I'll tell you why mine is best. Okay, and you can go buy my tutorial. Go there, buy it, make a commitment, and help me support me. So I have a JavaScript in depth and simple DOM tutorial. So JavaScript in depth includes JavaScript object references, and also in this tutorial you have a basic practical DOM tutorial. These are the DOM from the ground up. You do not need this tutorial is not about React.js, no using jQuery, no using nothing, no library whatsoever, plain vanilla JavaScript. So if you master my tutorial, you can write a framework such as React JS or Vue or Angular or a bunch of them. But however, I'm a dinosaur. I'm old-fashioned. I have, and I'm getting old, so I do not know. Actually, so I do not know the modern JavaScript development workflow. Like you npm, npm init, get a structure of, So I was just looking at webpack. I was looking at the webpack source code for 3 hours yesterday. I'm trying to, in my usual exploration, XR exploration fashion, look at all things, whatever I find interesting in the source code. But anyway, modern JavaScript, for example, you have this package JSON, npm init package JSON. Then you got this 1,000 dependencies, okay? Like literally, some of them, not 1,000, but for example, in Webpack, you have 21 dependencies. That means those are libraries you have to install before, if you are working on Webpack, developing the Webpack library, you need these 21 dependencies. And I was looking at them, each one, like what they are, what they do. And then you have 41 dev dependencies. Now, dev dependencies means it's not the final product of your project. So if you are working on Webpack, if you are the creator of Webpack, your final project is the Webpack library. But however, when you are working on it, you need what's so-called dev dependencies that makes your development easier. You know, you have a bunch of tools. So this webpack, for example, require 41 dev dependencies and 21 actual dependencies. You know, it's a headache. And each one of them dependencies, the library, may also require 10 or 20 dependencies. So that's today's JavaScript situation. You know, npm and webpack. By the way, webpack is a tool. It's called bundler. So if you don't code JavaScript, it'll take some time to explain. But basically, bundler takes a bunch of JavaScript source code and output one JavaScript source code, all of all things together. Meanwhile, eliminating the code or function you don't use. Why do you have that? Because JavaScript originally do not have a library system. So over the past 30 years now, it's a bunch of you know non-standard solutions. Then standard solution comes up. Then you have to worry about compatibility because you can't just throw away all the entire industrial code that's using one system of library system, library mechanism. So you have lots of tools that deal with this problem. So you have the concept of bundler, which is, by the way, different from compiler. Although it seems like it's like a compiler. It takes a bunch of source code, output one single source code, JavaScript code. But that's bundler, but it's not actually compiler. Then you have loaders, you have transformers. So modern JavaScript is very complex. Okay, and you have Node.js. Then look at this package.json. You have whatnot engines. You have engines. You have homepage. Then you have script section. Script section is a bunch of like automation, testing, unit testing, and a bunch of crap, linting and stuff. Okay, so that's modern JavaScript development, and I'm not familiar with it. I don't know how. I don't have experience. I don't know exactly. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm learning it, so that's why I'm looking into it. So as to your question, what do I recommend about what unit testing package, what unit testing library I use, things like that? I don't know. Okay, so that answers that question. So comments, guys, comments. Let me read the comments. Next question. Nightcrest is a great choice. Yes, and Friedman says, okay, hold on a second. Let me check my status. Am I alive? Yes. 13 people watching. I'm lucky. Friday. Okay, today is Friday. And we got 13 people and now 14. Okay. Next question. So Freddy says currently using Mocha in TypeScript. Okay, Mocha. I don't know what that is. Is that the template system? Let's see, Mocha TypeScript. It's interesting. So Mocha TypeScript. Okay, let's see what that is. Mocha TypeScript, writing Mocha test with style, OOP style. Oh, okay, so it's a test framework, I suppose. Import blah 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 from Mocha TypeScript. Okay, that is JavaScript 2015. And Sweet class hello something, whatever. Okay, it's a test framework. I don't like testing. Okay, I don't like unit testing. I did a video talking about that. You don't do unit testing. Well, it's useful, but not the way today's average programmers perceives unit testing, because average programmers, just like average people, they are brainless. They don't think. They live in modern society like your pet. modern society, you got pets, dogs, cats, who, when they were children, they live in your house for their entire life. You open the door, they won't go out because they don't know what to do. They are afraid. So they are just happy. Pet, you pet them, pet. So modern human animals are kind of like that. You watch TV or you go to Twitter, you watch your smartphone every day. You are happy, okay? When someone talks about political stuff, controversy, oh, someone got killed, oh, oh, you don't want to talk about that because you are fine. As long as you go to work, you make money, you can go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee, enjoy your life. You are okay. Okay, you don't worry about you don't. I don't want to make trouble. Okay, you want to be good. so so when the politician, the powerful, the Epstein or whatever, the powerful Google's head, Facebook, Zuckerberg, they do things, okay, but you are normal people, okay, you are law abiding citizen, you don't want to talk about that. So that is what modern society has become. uh, why is that, or what can you do? Well, it's part of nature, okay? It's actually natural. It is natural when you have this tremendous technology, and when your society becomes complicated. That's kind of the how things go in a natural way. In a sense, it's natural, okay? Um, okay, so what? Why? So why am I saying that? So that's modern society, okay? It's not because um, well, what my point is that it's actually the way things are. It's just a modern society. So my point is that similarly for average programmers, they are also normal. Okay, because they watch TV, they watch their smartphone. Not well, for programmers, well, what do you watch? Not TV, but you read Hacker News, you read Reddit, you go to Google, you go there, work every day. All you hear, all you see every day is the same old typical opinions about programming. What is good? What is bad? Oh, you should format your code this way. You should not do that way. Okay, this is the best technology. If you do that way, you are evil or you are stupid. Things like that. Modern average programmers are brainless, including, well, so who are the leaders? Who create these bad things? Typically, the programmer celebrities, like for example, some of the few I don't like. Larry Wall, who created Perl. Python, the Guido van Rossum, who created Python, he got a bag of opinions. Okay, I mean these are good people. Okay, but I don't like their opinion. And typically, they create a code-like structure. For example, Python community, Perl community, and they tell you what to do. Not directly, not like a dictatorship. That's typically what Americans think. Is it dictatorship? No. Okay, then it's good. Okay, that's the typical American think. Okay, they don't think. But anyway, Guido van Rossum, Larry Wall, for example, and the guy who created Ruby on Rails. He's an asshole. He goes by the name DHH or HDD or something. He is an asshole, and he is also one of the guy who tell you what to do. Like his opinion is the best opinion. Unlike me, okay, I tell you my opinion. I think it's the best opinion, but it's up to you. You can see, I give you the perspective. You can judge. Think about my reasons, and if you don't believe, if you don't agree with me, that's fine, because different people, different background, different needs. You do your ways. But some people, like the DHH guy, the guy who created Ruby on Rails, he's a scum in my opinion. Okay, because he tell you what to do, and if you do, he force his opinions onto you, and also because he's rich, he's one of the rich and powerful. He's like that. Okay, so lots of questions. Let me get to them. Okay, so I was digressing. I was saying, so modern programmers, average programmers, they don't think. They The thinking ability is removed from them, just like average people, and just like your pets in your house, your dogs or your cats. Happy is the key word. You want to keep them happy, just like your government keep you happy. And these open source things, this Python, this Ruby on Rails guy, they keep you happy. Well, open source, it make you happy. Open source, everything is free, free, my friend, and you should support it because it makes you happy. Okay, so what am I talking about? What I'm talking about modern JavaScript development, uh, and what I forgot. What is the point? Why am I talking about that? Free as in herpes, open source Linux. Okay, so unit testing. So I guess I was talking about unit testing, and that you know. So I was saying, unit testing is good idea, but not the way typical. Yeah, so not the way what most people are thinking. Because it has become unit testing along with unit testing came from agile. Agile came from extreme programming. Okay, that's the concept of pair programming originates. And why did pair programming originate? Because that's a way for non-coding managers to manage you programmers, to make you watch each other, to make you fight with each other, so they can fire you at any time. So you as a programmer is just a pawn under the big corporations like Google. They can fire you, do anything they want, and they are the purveyor of open source. Without Google, without Facebook, without Microsoft, open source will be dead long ago. It is open. It is Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft. These people with 1,000 million patent lawyers. They put meat in your mouth in these pets, just as you feed your pets every day. So Mocha, so I was saying, yeah. So test, the test, testing, software testing has become a industry, billion, I don't know, million, 100 million, $1 billion industry. Big corporations, you have like unit testing. So anyway, yeah, unit testing is good, but not the way you think. Okay, it has because what average programmers thinking about these things are just commercialized brain box. They just hand it to you. You should think of that way. You should do unit testing every code, every for example, if you are bought out, if you are into the agile thing, there are some programmers are. If you are bought out by the agile thing, then your thinking will be, oh, every line of code must have a unit test first. Like you have to write unit test first before you anything. There's a train of thought over there. That is the extreme case. But anyway, unit testing is, and also, you see, it is somewhat, it's kind of a loop. It's a feedback loop. Unit testing has become pervasive and critical, all important in software. Why? Because software becomes more and more and more complex. Browsers, anyone can fuck up anytime. It's common. Even I do. Because for example, if I'm looking at webpack, one of the modern JavaScript library, and I look at the code first of all, like it loads 20 dependencies and 40 dependencies, dev dependencies. What the fuck? It's not the case before. Like before before the modern, JavaScript era, let's say in 1900 or 2000s, when you have a library, that's just a library. Typically, that library is just by itself. It may use other libraries, but like one or two, three, five at tops. Okay, so you can use that library, or you can study that library and you know how it works. Not the case with today's JavaScript thing. For example, I look at webpack. Suppose I'm a hotshot. I know programming, I know JavaScript well, so I want to understand it. I look at webpack. First thing is these 20 dependencies. Each one of them, you have to study each one of them. It may take a day, few hours, more than few hours. Okay, it will take days or weeks to understand each one of them. And then you have 41 dependencies, and also each of these dependencies they may load 100 other dependencies. And anyway, and so okay, back to the so in 1990s, every other language, Perl, when you have a library that just does one thing. I mean, yeah, of course it does one thing, but it usually does not load 100 other libraries. This is, I think, unique in JavaScript. I do not think it is the case in other languages. Not in PHP, not in Perl, not in Python, not in Ruby. I'm not sure about Ruby, but I don't think that, and not in, for example, the language I know. You don't call like 40 or other dependencies. It's kind of unique in JavaScript. And I don't think it happens in Golang neither. So why does JavaScript? Well, part of it is because JavaScript is truly lousy. So you have 25 years of baggage, tremendous baggage of it. So back to unit testing. So I was saying, so why did it become popular? For two reasons. One is the corporations commercialization, because money. Once you have unit testing, you have thousands of corporations. They sell unit testing framework. They sell unit testing services. Like they can help your company, tell you what to do, tell you what's the best way. There's a lot consultancy corporations like that. They help other medium to small companies, do unit testing, things like that. Then you have frameworks, you have entire software, not open source. Often some of them open source, some of them not. They sell their library or framework for unit testing, and you go their website, they'll see, oh, we our clients, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, government, it's all good things. Open unit testing. So why is it popular? One is that because it's money, they want to, this corporation exists not because unit testing is truly great, it truly helps software industry, not necessarily so, but more because they are a company, they want to make money. Or you happens to write a unit testing framework, you want to promote it, of course. Then you start to tell everyone unit testing is the most important thing. You evangelize, you become one of the programmer celebrities, where every fart you say becomes on Hacker News. Then 100,000 programmers talk about it. Unit testing. Oh, he says this, that. Oh, I agree. Oh, I don't agree. Fuckheads, these idiots. So one reason unit testing become popular is because, like agile, because commercialization, because money, not because it's good, because money, they make money. So that's one reason. What's the other reason unit testing becomes so pervasive and critical? Because software itself becomes more and more complex. Why? Part of the reason is because the programmers becomes more and more brainless, because you started to have agile, you started to have pair programming, you focus on all this garbage. Okay, you don't focus on math, for example, practice. know your programming language well. You don't focus on those things anymore because it's like losing fat. Okay, it's like women losing fat or guys. You want to lose fat. Oh, but you have this something something diet, and next year you have something something slim fast. Next year, the next year you have something incredible new diet that you lose weight. Well, if you want to lose weight, stop eating. That's it. Okay. People who are poor, they don't gain weight. Okay. It's not, you have so much money, you're so comfortable, but you cannot help yourself. Then you have a need to look at this one weird trick to lose 2 pounds in a week. Okay. This all garbage. And they make money. They are trying to sell their slim fast or whatever. They are all trying to make money, and or some strange exercise or yoga, or some, they, especially when it comes to diet in America, it's crazy. Paleo ethic diet or whatever, sugar, whatever meat diet, carbo free diet, juice diet, whatever diet, that this that fuck. So that's a similar situation in programming. Back to unit testing. Okay, so today's programmer, because the corporation, commercialization, and hacker news, all they are all trying to make money. Money is that drives all this crap. Then you get programmers who become like idiots. Okay, well, fact more precisely, you get programmers who know less than, let's say 90, let's say in the 1990s, who don't study much. You just use a bunch of, like webpack. You just load libraries. Each one is like 5 lines. You should know how to write it. You don't need it, but you don't know what you're doing. You got software blow. You got so you got shit because you are no good. Then you got lots of other shit. Then browsers, each browser, Google Chrome, they become criminals. They do whatever. They fry. They, on one hand they say, oh, we respect standard. On the other hand, they do deviant things, fuck up everything. That's browser. So the browser today becomes, it's probably one of the most complex software. Okay, far more, 10 times more complex than Emacs to write a browser. It's not just about a spec, you see, because they have a lot of hacks to be so that they are fast, to be competitive, and that's another story. So anyway, back to my original, what I'm trying to say. One reason unit tests becomes ubiquitous because money, commercialization by lots of corporations. The other reason it becomes necessary almost because software becomes too complex. Not necessarily so, but rather one drives the other, because you see, software, a browser for example, may not need to be, Unix browser, it actually may not be that complex. The complexities are man-made. Human animals made them. Okay, so they become more and more complex. Why they become more complex? Because this framework, these corporations, they put garbage in it. So it become more complex. When it's more complex, you need more unit testing. So it's a feedback loop. You see, that's what I'm saying. You see, it becomes so complex. This webpack, these fucking 20 dependencies and 40 dependencies. So when you write this webpack, you need to then you need unit testing. Then you have 1,000 unit testing frameworks. You see what I'm saying? Now, in my biased opinion, where does this come from? From the Unix philosophy fuckheads, the Unix people, those people who promote Unix and Linux. Unix is the first one. Unix and C language is the granddaddy who created this kind of thing, this kind of mentality. And then thinking, oh, for example, Unix begin with jargons. Unix philosophy, that's first thing. Unix philosophy, which is unscientific, crap. It's just code mantra. Unix philosophy. Then that's that. In my opinion, this is rather biased opinion, but it's That's my view of things. So have you done any rants about software dependency bloat in general? No, but that's what I'm doing now. Is that not enough? So, so let's go back to the question. So I was talking. So unit test. Yeah, I don't know a unit test. Okay, I don't know too well. Actually, I talked about unit test for like half an hour in previous videos. You might find it. Let's see. Go to XR Talk Show, search test, and okay, so it's not in the title. Now search the content unit testing. Okay, unit test. Let's see if we can find it. No, I should have it. I talked about it sometimes last month also. So let me keep reading the comments. Actually, I do have some more keyboard stuff I want to talk about. Evolution of laptop keyboards. Yeah, you can talk about that and other things. So let's read the comments. I have to go to the shop now before it closes. Be right back. Okay, Freddy. Uh, Kathy. Kathy, I'm almost on board now. So Kathy, you need to buy a keyboard. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Have to go to the shop. Kinesis is cool. So Alan says another thing which XR would not have to worry about is that some key codes are hard on the Kinesis. Yes, that is true. Yeah, Kinesis. So if you get Kinesis, you have the issue of key codes. For example, if you want to press Alt Tab, Alt Tab is very common on Windows. So you have to press this key with your left thumb. Okay, let me show you then. And the tab on the left corner. So, which is actually a problem. Let's see if I can show that. So you see, how do you press Alt Tab? So for me, this is my natural position. Okay. So I have stretched here and stretch my pinky, And but if you have bigger hand, I guess that's okay. Yeah, but so Alt Tab is one of them. Then sometimes you have Alt Shift Tab. Then sometimes Control Tab. Sometimes you have to press Alt Control something. So that's a problem. But as one of my recommendation about keyboarding is that you should avoid any key code. So you should remap any alt tab something, control tab something. Try avoid them as much as possible. Use single key press. For example, if I want to alt tab, yeah, let me show you. So if I want to alt tab, switch to the last application. I don't do code. Okay, I just do press this key. Okay, you see. And but I know you might be asking, yeah, but alt tab can switch to other windows. I don't do that because when you do alt tab, okay, let me show you. Okay, so alt tab, let me show you. Alt tab. Wait, is it wait? Oh, I'm a Mac. I'm on a Mac, so my key is actually command. Okay, actually, I set my tab to be here, so will be weird for you to look at. I never press this command tab. Okay, so you can see this is typical. When people talk about alt tab or command tab. So actually, let's switch to Google Chrome. I don't do this. I think this is the worst thing because it requires a brain cycle. Because when you press Alt tab, your brain start to engage because you need to see which program you are currently, you want to switch to. Okay, this is getting more detailed. Basically, when it comes to user interface, you want to avoid any user interface that requires brain cycle. So you want to avoid any thinking at all. You want your user interface to be as much as based on muscle memory as possible, like without having to look or without even having to think. The requirement to look and think is the worst, such as the Alt tab. Let's see where we are. So for example, right now I want to switch to OBS. Okay, so this one, you see, it takes some thinking to do. So requires thinking and requires seeing is the worst. You don't want that. So if you can remove the thinking part, just seeing part, okay, the best is remove them all. For example, when I want to switch to my last app, I don't need to look. I can close my eyes. I know my finger positions. I can press a key. I know I don't have to look. So when you are working, you just press a key. Even your eyes is on the screen, but you are not actually having to pay attention to anything. You just press a key. It's a muscle memory. That's the thing. It's a muscle memory. So, but what if you want to switch to the app before that? Okay, in that case, I use the mouse. Okay, I have auto click, like I mentioned. I hold on a second. Let me stop this talking. So I move my mouse to whichever window I want. I don't have to click. I'm not clicking. I've showed that before in my videos. Okay, so you can see my mouse. I'm not holding any buttons. I just nudge it, and when the mouse cursor stops moving, it does a click. Okay, so that's my way, and that's better. Okay, I think that's superior user interface. Human computer interaction, human computer interface. And yeah, and also I recommend to avoid any key codes. So that's what I do. I avoid any possible keyboard. Rebind them if possible. You buy a programmable keyboard. The Kinesis and the Ultimate Hacking are both programmable, so you can program it. That's what I did. So avoid any of the code keys. So on the Kinesis, the code keys may be a problem because why? Again, history. Because we have a momentum of bad design. So why do you have these, Alt Shift tab, things like that? That's because for vast majority of history, keyboards are based on this shape. For because typewriters, okay, keyboard are this shape in general. So Alt tab, that's kind of close. They don't, it's just there. Then you have Alt Shift tab. So all the keyboard shortcuts came from, when they are designed, they came from this shape of keyboard. So that's why you have them. But now Kinesis, since it's more ergonomic, but then the shortcuts is no longer all together in one place, things like that. So this is a natural way, evolution of things. You cannot blame on anyone. You cannot say, because these people are stupid. This is actually natural because you invented mechanical keyboards, then people invented computer keyboards, which is based on mechanical keyboard. Why? Because habit. If you create Kinesis, nobody will use it even today because habit. And that's also important. So what I'm saying is that what I'm trying to say is that try not to follow some sort of um, uh, controversy, not controversy, conspiracy theory. So you might, I know some people, some keyboard nerd will say, "Oh, this is all garbage." Why? Oh, why are not everyone using Vorak? Why everyone should be forced to use Kinesis? Things like that. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea, but however, remember, vast majority of people, they don't need to type that much. So when they see this keyboard, they are happy with it. When they see Kinesis, they think it's weird. Weird, expensive, unnecessary, and impractical. That's most people, vast majority actually, people's opinion on Kinesis. Why? Because actually to them that's true. They don't really, they type 10 minutes a day. They don't need this big thing, and they have to learn. They have to spend 1 hour, 1 month to learn to use it. All the keys are new positions. That's not good for them. Your mom, your dad, for example, whoever doesn't use a computer often. So for vast majority of people, they are happy with these normal shaped keyboards. However, it is still true these are no good. If you really concerned about human computer interaction, ergonomics, things like that, this are should be phased out. It is true that. So okay. So Leo Cardo says, what are some basic changes you would like to see for the standard keyboard? I think making the modifiers 1.25 unit to 1.2 space bars. Yeah, I think that's true. So yeah, make the space bar smaller is one of the great improvement. When you look at the standard PC keyboard, there's quite a lot of things you need to fix. Quite a lot. Okay, the caps lock key is a relic. You should remove it. The spacebar is too long. You don't need that big. Okay, split it into two or three or four even. And it's lots of problem. And the slanted. Okay, so I have an article here. You go to keyboard design. You go to here. I document many stupid things of the traditional keyboard, and I discuss how those designs came from. So you can read about it. So the keys arrangement are like in this, they say staggered layout. They are not in a strange way. That why is it staggered? Because you see the bars underneath the key, they need to keep these bars evenly distributed. That is why the key becomes this kind of sloped arrangement. Because originally when you have mechanical typewriters, you need it's necessary that way because you need the bars underneath to be evenly distributed, so that the mechanism is simpler, so that you can actually have a typewriter. Otherwise you wouldn't have typewriter. Design engineering, so back in the days. But today we don't have, our keyboard is not mechanical, but still we have all these bad designs inherited from tradition. The major force of that is habit, because people don't want to change habit. It's good enough. It's good enough. People don't want to. For example, so let me give you a simple example. People can understand. You are a programmer, right? What's the language you program in daily? Maybe it's Python, maybe it's Java, maybe it's C. Okay, and I'm sure you've heard there are some other programming language phonetics. They're gonna tell you, oh, you should learn Haskell. You really should. There's no reason to not learn Haskell. Okay, and then you also hear people about other languages. You get idea. Lisp, Lisp, Haskell, others, or Rust. Yeah, but the thing is, Yeah, Haskell, but it's going to take you a month or more to learn. You don't need to. Do you need to? Like, if you are already working a job, then it's actually wasted of time because there's no need for you to, unless you work in a new project. They require Haskell, right? You already have a job. You code Haskell. You code Java. You make good money, you're happy. In fact, you do not want Haskell to be popular, because once Haskell is popular, it threatens your favorite language. That's the case. So it's this all these are natural reasons. So in the same way, keyboard, most people are happy with the just traditional bad design, in many ways bad keyboard design. They don't change. The change is coming slowly, but it's usually so today, for example, we know a lot of people love, like us, we appreciate ergonomic keyboards. We and many of the do it yourself among keyboard fan communities, they create keyboards like that. So PC keyboard, there are lots of things that needs to change. But if the question is what do I if I can just pick one simple thing, I would say split the spacebar into two. Okay, split the spacebar into two. In fact, Microsoft tried to do that. Actually, Microsoft did that. Okay, let me tell you. For example, we are beginning to have keyboards with split space bars, but for average people, they don't like it actually. So it's kind of sad. Again, why? Because habit. People don't want to change habit. Because people are used to. Then for example, you bought your mom a new keyboard. You bought your dad a new keyboard. It's got a split space bar. Now, your dad is not a keyboard nerd, okay? So to him, oh, this is new, because you told him, this is truly good because it's got new design, because it fixed all the problems. But to your dad, he's thinking, oh, this is great. This is, my son told me this is new design. But when he actually type it, he only types 10 minutes a day. He got annoyed, because because he has to adapt to this new thing. Maybe by default the left space bar do backspace or something else. He got annoyed because he used to press space bar with both left or right hand or whatever, just hit it with the palm. But now he cannot do that anymore, and he won't tell you, but he'll think, this is annoying. God, this is annoying. Who invented this? Who invented this split space bar? But he doesn't know because he only typed 10 minutes a day. If he types 2 hours a day, he start to have hand pains. He will start to he will start to look for solutions. How did I get the hand pain? How did that happen? He will need to see doctors. It's gonna be a problem. So he begin to read about keyboards. He begin to try this split bar, and he begin to actually believe, and he find it actually better. That's the thing. So people actually, Microsoft, for example, they have designed. Let me tell you the story about the split spacebar. So we go to keyboard. Okay, so actually go to the ergonomic keyboard, and go down. And Microsoft. Okay, actually, let me tell you this one. Okay, history of ergonomic keyboard history. Okay, it's not here. Um, okay, I have it somewhere here. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that Microsoft had a semi-ergonomic keyboard. Not this one, because this is kind of full ergonomic. But Microsoft made a semi-ergonomic keyboard. So it looks like I have a page somewhere, but where is it? Let's see if I can find it. This one. Okay, so this one. So Microsoft, I think this is maybe it's no longer made. Let's see Amazon. There it is. Okay, so it's still, yeah, it's no longer made. It's, it's defunct. So go back, close. So Microsoft created this keyboard back in 2013. It's a little bit ergonomic because you can see it's a bit curved. So you don't have to, you don't have to do that. It's more natural a little bit. And they created split spacebar. And by default, I think by default or maybe optional, the left space is backspace. Now this is a great innovation because backspace is one of the key you press the most often. Most often, you don't have to move your hand. You have this wrist moving problem. It becomes painful. So now you just press your left thumb for the backspace. It's a great innovation. But you know what? I go as usual, in my research, I go read all the Amazon reviews. I go read all the Amazon reviews, and look at what people say. A lot of people they get annoyed. They say this is the most stupid, split space bar with the backspace. They don't want that. You see, so here is the problem. You see, we are seeing a problem. How people, they do not want to change, even it's something better. Habit is the thing. Habit. This applies to programming languages. It applies a lot to programming languages too. You are used to C syntax or whatever, Java. The way you don't change until you die. Your generation died out. So programming languages change basically every 10 years, kind of. Every 10 years, it slowly changes every 10 years because you have to wait for the whole generation to die. They are retired, they no longer program. The new generation takes over, like today's JavaScript people. Maybe. So I'm outdated. These JavaScript millennial fuckheads, they are doing these things, and maybe it's better. Okay, they waiting for me to die. So anyway, yeah, people like to stick to with their habit, and you see the interesting thing is that they don't realize that. I mean, so for example, when people criticize this split spacebar, they truly believe this is idiotic. They truly believe that one giant spacebar is just good. Okay, that's because habit. And also because they don't have a need. They don't have need to. They don't have hand pen. They don't have a need to change. So they don't see what's the problem. Why you need to split the spacebar? They don't see it. In the same way, this working in the same way in programming languages and also Emacs. For example, a lot of Emacs users, a lot of my followers, you use the Emacs default key for maybe 5 or 10 years. You don't want to change, as long as you don't have hand problems, you don't want to change. It just works, because changing means you have to spend 1 month or 2 months very painful because every time you type something, it's wrong. Something happened. You don't know what went on. You have to, what did I press? Oh, because it's a new key binding. Oh, it's painful for 1 month to adopt new things. People don't want to change. Okay, so how long have I been talking? 1 hour 14 minutes. So maybe 2 minutes and we shut down. And let's see if I missed any questions. So Leonardo's question, yeah, I think there are so many things we can change with the traditional PC keyboard, and I think the if I can just pick one, I would probably split space bar is one of the easy thing to do. Just split it and make the left one backspace. That's a good choice by default. There are so many choices, but make it backspace is a good choice. And there are many also. You could you probably want to split the whole keyboard as well. That's one thing you can do. uh, but then it becomes more and more changes. Then you have tenting. That's all that. Okay, so that's about that. So let's see, next question addressed to me. Okay, no more questions, I guess. uh Asian plus girl. uh Yeah, so Kinesis keyboard is kind of large if you are a Asian female. So in that case, I would recommend um, Kinesis Freestyle is pretty good. Actually, I recommend almost all of these. Okay, so I recommend Kinesis Freestyle. I recommend this very much because it's got programmable keys. It's split. You can tend it, yeah, and it's got extra keys. Fantastic, and those are the programmability of this keyboard is fantastic. It's the the programmability of this keyboard is the same as the Kinesis Advantage too. So you can, and also they got on-the-fly programming. That means you don't have to launch some kind of software to program the keys. You can if you want to, because that way you can have a visual. You can have a visual overview of what keys are where, but you don't have to. You can just press keys to remap keys. That's called on-the-fly programmability or driverless programmability. So this is fantastic. And ultimate hacking is also fantastic. And also, depends on how much you want to spend. For example, Kinesis Freestyle is 150 or 100 or maybe 200, something like that. Don't quote me on the price, okay? Because okay, $200, 200 dollars with the uh, backlighting. But if you want to go with ultimate hacking, it's 240 or something. But you have much less keys. My personal preference, I would prefer the Kinesis Freestyle, even if they are the same price, because this is more keys and stuff. Ultimate hacking, they have it has its own advantages. First of all, because the programmability beats them all, as far as I know. Yes, it has more programmable features. For example, I can program a key to be dual function. That is, for example, you can make the caps lock, for example, if you want to. I didn't do that, but if you want to, you can make a key, for example, this key, to be to be caps lock, for example. But if you held it down and press another key, then it functions as a control. It's up to you. So you can have actually hardware based dual function keys. So that's fantastic. And I don't think you can do this on the Kinesis. Kinesis. So so each one has different, and also happy. The ultimate hacking is very compact, so it's portable. You can bring it to work if you are a contractor. If you need to travel a lot, this is better because the Kinesis is kind of bulky. The palm rest you can remove, but but not the top and on the side keys. So you have several choices, and expose is pretty good, except it's not tinted. You cannot do it like that. But if you don't have hand pen, or this is great. It's also programmable, and it's cheaper than neither one of those, I think. So anyway, you have lots of these choices. So for small hand, actually, I have an article for that. Best ergonomic keyboards for small hands. So all these are great. Okay. Um, but however, this one, this one is from Japan, and this one costs $500. So $500, that's a bit too much. For example, you can just buy this ultimate hacking and buy another keypad, you know, instead of these $500 from Japan. But this one is interesting because because it's designed by Japanese, they actually have like two or three sizes, like two or three size. Let's see, two size. Okay, standard and small. Wait, yeah, standard and medium. So standard is like typical standard, and medium, they call it medium, but it's more for Japanese hands. So it's actually, if you truly want your hand to fit, then this one 500 something. And yeah, so you have several choices about that. So we are ending. So let's see what I drink, and that's it for today. I get a drink, and that's it for today. So today's drink, first of all, the power juice. Power juice, which is condensed coffee, and raspberry and cranberry and apple. Most of it is apple juice, although they don't print it there, but juice is like that. Most of it is apple because apple juice is cheaper. And raspberry and cranberry, those are very expensive things. Those are very expensive fruits. Yes, I mix span with fruit juice. I've done that in so many videos. You haven't seen it before. Yeah, so and by the way, they are all sugar free. I never drink sugared water. I never put sugar to anything, and that's good for you. Don't ever drink sugared thing, because I used to drink this another brand called this energy drink. I used to drink. This is sugar free, by the way. All my drink are sugar free. I never drink sugared water like Coke, Pepsi. Never in my life. Maybe once a year. Okay, something like that. But basically, I never drink sugared things. I don't put sugar in your teas. I've seen American. They actually, my girlfriend. Okay, I had a girlfriend back then. She put sugar in the tea. What the fuck? In China, you never ever put sugar in the tea. Sugar or milk. You never ever put milk in the tea. Tea is just tea. You drink tea for tea, not sugar and milk. that's that's Western. I suppose that's England tradition. You put milk and sugar. Who does that? So don't drink sugar. Okay, so for 3 years, I've been drinking those energy drink, sugared ones. They do things to your body, because after 3 years, I noticed, like you have what's called cellulite on your skin. I noticed I have that. I never had that. Okay, but sugar does that to you. So I don't, I stopped doing that. Okay, did you just mix bang with fruit juice? Yes. Cranberry. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you guys for coming. Bye. My keyboards. Okay, ortholinear. Yes, I like ortholinear keyboards. Okay, so why don't I show you some more video footage of my things. Okay, this is my drink. That's milk. Okay, that's why you see the residue on the side. Milk in the morning, milk and coffee powder. So you see, this ultimate hacking, I was using it for a few days for a change. But yesterday I switched back because this is, it's got more keys. But on this one, then you have to hold down this and press that. I mean, even it's great, but I don't want to hold down this because it's got not enough keys. You have to do that. So, but this one of the flaw, you see, it's not ortholinear. So this, on the other hand, this is all straight. It's a square grid. Okay, you can call it square grid, or you call it a matrix layout, or you call it a rectilinear layout, or you call it a ortholinear layout. These jargons. Um, for example, this one is also not that one, but this one, you see this, it's also linear, a grid layout. I prefer the term grid because it's simple. People understand what it means. Grid. Okay, when you say grid, the full name will be square grid. Like a grid paper to plot math. Grid. But people, you don't need to say square grid. Grid, people understand it's a grid, chessboard, grid. Okay, you don't need to say the jargon ortholinear, ortholinear. By the way, why ortholinear? Because ortho is short for orthogonal. And if you ask people, orthogonal, where it came from, it's orthogonal. That word is used in math most often. Okay, now, I don't know what's the etymology. It would be interesting to look into. Kasa Talk Show. Go to Kasa's Talk Show and okay, magnify. Okay, orthogonal, orthogonal. Okay, now let's call the command etymology. Okay, and show in browser. Let's see the etymology of orthogonal. So it says pertaining to or depending upon the use of right angles. Okay, 1570 from French orthogonal, from orthogon, from Latin, late Latin, orthogonious, from Greek orthogonios, right angles, right angled. Okay, from ortho, straight. Okay, so Greek right angles, angled, and from ortho, straight, and gonia, angle, corner. Okay, so then it's from PIE root, knee angle. Okay, so orthogonal basically came from originally from Greek, meaning straight angle, straight angle, 90 degrees angle, right angle. So that term is used in math most of the time, orthogonal. And then you have a math jargon, orthonormal. Okay, orthonormal is actually, orthogonal is a basic geometry. You say orthogonal lines, but orthonormal is more advanced in differential geometry. For example, you have orthonormal vectors. Anyway, orthogonal. So when it comes to keyboard, okay, let's go back to keyboard. when it comes to jargons, I look at things. I study from all perspectives, that catches my fancy. So you have to pay attention to the term used to describe the key layout. So this one, typically people say it's staggered layout, the traditional way. And often you hear people say also staggered, or um, I would just call it slanted. That's the term I usually say, slanted, because it's slanted. But normally, the keyboard nerds say staggered, the English people. So I suppose I prefer slanted. But anyway, so notice some of these are still using the slanted layout, staggered layout, even though they are supposedly ergonomic keyboards, split. You know why? Because I know why. Because if you create a keyboard, like suppose you are a creator of this keyboard and you want to sell it. Now you need to sell, because if nobody buys, your company dies. Your product doesn't exist. None. Gone. Okay, so gone. So you want to be able to make people buy it. Now, when it comes to design, you see every design is of choice, almost of a choice. So if you think of yourself as a creator of a keyboard, then you have to think about, whether you want, the grid layout or slanted layout. You have to make a decision. Uh, for example, this ultimate hacking is supposed to be ultimate, but however, they choose the slanted layout. Why? I know why. Because if you create a keyboard with the orthogonal grid layout, the chances of people buying it will be reduced by tenfold. Yeah, that much. Because vast majority of people, they are not used to this. They don't. It's foreign, like we mentioned before, habit. They see it, they find it strange, they are not going to buy it. Okay. They On the other hand, if you have a keyboard like that, they see, oh, this is great, split. Now I'm going to try to I have hand pen, and I'm going to try to adopt ergonomic, and this they see this one, they'll buy it. But if you have the grid layout, then they try to type it. It's a mistake all the time. They don't buy it. So basically, when you have a staggered layout, the chances of the keyboard sell is 10 times more. Okay, so that is why, like I said, it's slow for this. Even these all these ergonomic ones to change. It's slow process. Because I've talked to the ultimate hacking guys. Like one day I made a Twitter comment. I don't. I tell them this is no good. You should have grid. This is also the reason. This is also the reason. I rather not use this. I rather prefer this much. Because the curves, the keys, but also because it's grid, also because it's got more keys than these, about 5 or 10. If you don't count these small keys, this one's got 5 or 10 more keys than these. And one of the reason is because of the slanted layout. The left hand, you make mistakes when I switch between them. Yeah, but they need to survive. That's the thing. They as a keyboard maker, they need to sell it. If you make it grid, your sale will be reduced like 10 times that much, truly. So it's really, so I mean, so why am I saying this? I'm talking to those of you keyboard nerds. Like maybe you believe, oh, it's a conspiracy, why they, or something like that. Everyone should follow the grid. That's true, but the fact, you have to consider the reality. The reality is that if you make it grid, then you will have 10 less people buy it. Then your company closed down. Then you are done for. That's even worse. If your company shut down, nobody buys it. So that is why they pick that, and same way with another keyboard, new one. Okay, that's it for today. I think 1 hour and 34 minutes. Bye, guys. Go to my Patreon. Go to my PayPal if you like my stuff. Thumb up, thumb up keys. Share my videos. Bye, guys.